Welcome to the Business of School podcast, brought to you by Cole Connect. Get ready for a journey of topical insights, engaging conversations, and maybe a few aha moments from the business, finance, and technology side of schools. Cole School experts are your host, and with our guests from the world of education, we're about to embark on a learning adventure to support you in the business of your school.
As a teacher and school administrator, Grant Grosser never accepted the status quo. He constantly set about addressing the issues and frustrations he experienced in each of the roles he undertook in his school, teaching himself to program software systems that would allow both himself and others to do better. In 2006, he quit his job as deputy principal and founded Sector Software with a clear vision to support teachers by reducing workloads and improving the quality of learning and teaching through better workflows. From kitchen table to becoming the CEO of the most awarded software in Australian EdTech, Sector established a reputation for caring for customers, innovation, and the determination to support teachers as they grow young lives. Grant retired from Sector in 2019, but remains a passionate advocate for teachers, schools, and education. Well, welcome, Grant, to the Business of School podcast. Can you tell us about yourself and what led you to establish Sector Software?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long journey. I know you know a bit of it, but as a industrial arts teacher, I got promoted into a student management, student welfare role as a year coordinator, and I had a particular event happen where I needed to suspend a child, and the parents were very unhappy with me. They had no inkling that there was anything going wrong with their son. I sort of worked it out when I went into the filing cabinet and found all of these green slips, which were bad slips, right, and realised that I had to do something to support our teachers because the teacher was really struggling. And so I went to the deputy and we suspended the child, and the parents were really upset. And I realised that I can't work and do my job well getting parents involved in the loop early, sort of helping the child navigate the journey if I wasn't across the information that was going, and managing 124 kids, I think it was at the time, with all of this paper and files just wasn't going to allow me to do my job really well and to really look after the kids. So I taught myself a bit of programming using Microsoft Access, started putting when the green slips had come in my pigeonhole, I'd put them all into the software, and then I was regularly able to, sort of spit out lists of numbers, and those numbers helped me sort of hone in on, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And then I could get parents involved, really early. And so I guess my software career, post my teaching career, really started because I just didn't want to sit with the status quo. I wanted to develop tools that were going to help me do my job. And then we found that actually the other year coordinators, they're like, can we use that too? So the tool that I developed for myself was very helpful in helping them become better at their job. And then as I moved through different roles in the school, eventually becoming a deputy principal, I needed different tools. And each time I went into a new role, I'd find that I developed new tools using Microsoft Access. Right. And 2006, I was quite distressed at the state of teaching, the state of how we were putting so much pressure, admin-wise, parent pressure, pressure for teachers to do better, pressure from governing bodies, ranking and all that sort of stuff. And I just came home one day and said to my wife, Sharon, I said, I can't do this anymore. And she said, well, quit, I'm like, I didn't think of that. So I actually quit. And then when I quit, I guess a bit of a cloud lifted off me. And I started thinking about what I could do for the teaching profession, how I could help teachers to help students, because teachers are the most important influence in a child's life outside of the parents. And I just wanted to help support teachers, reduce workloads, help them do more with what they were already doing so that they could be better teachers without having to expend a whole lot more energy. And so I come up with this idea, which ultimately became Sector Software.
So you've obviously been involved in that ed tech landscape, probably before it was known as ed tech. How do you see the state of ed tech in Australia at the moment?
Look, I see it's both very solid, but it's also got some real challenges. So there's a lot of products out there. I really love products that are sort of grown from people having struggles in their own profession and building them out. And I know there's an early childhood sort of and a school product. I think it's out of India, and I've heard the story of the guy, and I'm just like, wow, this guy's and it was just such an inspiring story. But I see so much that was just developed by people going, oh, there's an opportunity here, let's make money. The products that come organically through people, they really resonate with teachers, they really resonate with schools, they really resonate with students, and they work really well. Others are just like, got to tick a box, got to have a bit of software to do this thing. Yep. So I think there's the choice is very large. I think there's good products and there's bad products out there. But I'm not sure that schools are necessarily prioritising the right things when they choose software. But I think another thing that has happened is not just for my company sector, but for all of the major ones that were organically started up in Australia, they're all now owned by private equity. And I think that's had a really detrimental impact on the ability of the companies to supply services to support the products and really help schools get the most, and even at our even with our competitors, 5-8 years ago, before there was a lot of private equity involved, they were really providing great service to schools, really supporting their products, really helping schools to get the most value and get the best value for students. I think that's changed a lot, and you're seeing a lot of the private equity coming in. It's really becomes about money. So I think if schools choose the right product, if they have the right framework that they're making those decisions, I think it's a really good place to be in, because there's a lot of good products available.
Yeah, I like what you say there, Grant, in terms of like knows like. So educators, those who have worked in the industry, recognize those who are in the industry for genuine reasons.
Yeah.
So what do you think schools should be considering if they're making a decision about implementing any sort of ed tech in schools?
Yeah, look, this is a really good question. I think schools are losing their way at the moment in terms of how they're making decisions. I think we need to really go back to basics. Why do we exist as a school? And let's really distill our mission. And then let's come back and say, well, if we're going to achieve this, and if your mission isn't right at the centre about learning and teaching, then you're missing the mark as an education organisation, right, as a school. So learning and teaching has to be at the heart of what you're doing. So therefore, who's right at the centre? Well, kids are, right? So all of the decisions we make should have an end goal of how is this benefiting the students. So you might make decisions around professional learning that you do with teachers, around software, around procurement, you might around facilities that you're building. At the end, you really need to understand how that strings back to bringing value for the child. Right, so even, some of the wealthier schools making decisions to sell property, how's that coming back and bringing value? We are still very government funded. We still have accountability to the public and the students, and we absolutely must show value in terms of learning and teaching. So when we make decisions, I think the very disappointing thing I've seen, as I said a minute ago, private equity coming in, perhaps the service dropping away. And I know for my own company sector, a lot of schools, they've had price hikes, they've had dropping in service, and so they're starting to look at other products. That's not the reason you look at another product. You look at another product to say, well, what is in the best interests of students? And I can't honestly tell you now that there's a better learning and teaching tool than the one we built. It still stands alone, in my opinion, for adding value to learning and teaching. So if we are coming into a whole upheaval of the software we're using because admin's like, well, hang on a tick, we're now paying X for our, and we were only paying half X before, we need to do a reevaluation, sure, but make sure that the key drivers are around value in teaching and learning, if that makes sense. So, whatever we do as a school, you would know about the Corpus Rios planning methodology that I'm a big fan of and lover of. That mission, the reason we exist, everything we do has to be driven by the reason we exist.
Right.
And schools need to come back to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's really heartening to hear that sort of stakeholder engagement and considering who our major stakeholders are in schools.
Absolutely.
Our major stakeholders are our students. That's why we exist.
But let me be clear, again, going back to this idea of the teacher. When I started Sector, I had a very clear vision in mind, and that was to support the teacher. Now, the flow and effect of that was to students. So students are still at the centre. But given the importance of the teacher in the child's life, I believe that every child who has one teacher that inspires them, that they look up to at school, is better for the rest of their life as a result of that interaction with that teacher. So for me, I built our software around the way that teachers work. Around teachers' workflows, around helping remove a lot of the redundancy in the workflow and making that end-to-end process really straightforward, mirroring the way that they want to work, and then making all of the data they need in their decision-making available without trying to find it in multiple places. So, even though for me it was all about the teacher, it was never just about the teacher. It was about the impact they were going to have on students.
Yeah. So you spoke about value before. What do you see as the value in establishing partnerships when a school is considering, say, or even implementing an ed tech piece?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. When we were thriving as a company, we weren't just dropping software in a school and running. There was a huge implementation process, making sure that teachers were upskilled. We had key people in that school that we were partnering with and making sure that they knew of changes that were coming and that they knew how to use the tool in the best way possible. With a lot of that gone now, I guess schools are struggling a little bit to get the value out of the software. But if I a little story, I was at a pub down in a little country town in WA recently, and one of my other mates happened to come into the pub, and he had a mate who was teaching at a school that used Sector, and the guy didn't know me from a bar of soap, but he, started chatting, and the other bloke said, oh, yeah, Grant was involved with Sector and this, that and the other. You're like, Sector. It's nothing but a box-ticking exercise, so the head honchos can, cover their butts and that, and I don't even bother with it. I just use, I can't remember whether it was Google Notes or something like that.
Yep.
And I reflect on that, and I just think you actually don't have any understanding of what Sector's capable of what the product's capable of doing. So I'll stop using Sector. Let's just talk about the product. You're not seeing value in the product because it's being imposed from above. It's being you're not fully conversant in how all of the different bits of data fit together and where the value for you lies. And I was talking to another teacher who's running a sort of online division of a school, but she was in that school when COVID hit. And I said to her, tell me, I've had this idea in my head because I've been obviously retired and retired through COVID. And I said to her, I have this in my idea in my head that if you're a school using sector at the top of your game and using every bit of it, that when COVID hit and kids couldn't come to school, you didn't even need a break stride. She said, absolutely. She said, we had to grab a bit of conferencing software. But apart from that, all of the things that we were doing, everything was there. Yeah. We didn't have to break stride. It was like, okay, we don't have the classroom anymore, but the classroom's not this physical space. And so from the guy who's like, oh, I don't even bother, it's too hard. If we come back, it's all about training. It's all about understanding. It's all about helping the teacher get value. And once they understand the value, wow, So, some of those things like, if we're just marking the role, we got to go into this bit of software. I already keep it in my over here anyway, but now I've got to go in the software and do it as well. And if we just see it as that, but if we've got all of our assessments linked into it, then we can actually see, oh, hang on a tick, this kid's missed the last 2 assessments, and we can see patterns in it. We can pull up, other attendance records across the school, and is it just this period 3 on a Wednesday when we have our weekly quiz that they're missing, or what is it? And all of the information that we need to help us as teachers make really good decisions, it's all there. And so coming back to the key question is, what are partnerships? Where's the value in partnerships? If you're a school and you're really thorough and you're going to assign one person to really discover and have some sort of relationship with the software provider or a third party that's really knowledgeable, that's great. But most schools can't invest, say, a full-time person in learning the software end-to-end, finding the value points and all of that. So what do we need? We need partnerships. We need people who can have a look at what you're doing with your software. We don't need to throw out what we have. We need to learn how to use what we have well, right? And that's where your partnerships are really going to, help you come on board.
That really resonates with me. I've been speaking lately of what we want to do is we want to just give the opportunity to schools to do what they do best. And that's not necessarily learning a new piece of software or not necessarily doing job A or job B. Their priorities should be with the students. So that leads me into this question about, do you think schools should be looking for an all-in-one silver bullet software system, which is everything, or should schools look to choose a best of breed? For like multiple tools.
Yeah, so it's a really, really important question. Look, I did have designs on building that silver bullet, but no one has. So look for the silver bullet, keep looking for the silver bullet, keep wasting money on, RFIs and, tenders and all that sort of stuff. And there is no silver bullet. It does not exist. If it does one thing really, really well, there's other things that won't do well. All right? So best of breed is a very real possibility. However, we've got to have interoperability. You've got to have data that moves between those systems. And one of the things I'm going to say really strongly right now is, before you choose a system, or if you have a system where the people who run that system are saying, no, we're not going to allow you to have access to that data and to share it out with other software, dump them. They don't deserve to be in your backyard. They don't understand what education is about. If we have these attendance systems and we have wellbeing systems and we have admin systems to do enrolments and financials and, all of that sort of stuff, we need to actually be able to cross-reference that data, and some data from one system needs to appear in the other. We have to have that interoperability. There are some really great best-of-breed systems out there. I always wanted to try and build best of breed in everything we did, but you just can't have the huge tool set that we need as schools and have every piece of it being best of breed. So, look for best of breed. Go to your admin provider first and say, right, how are we're going to be finding other solutions. No, we don't like yours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we're not using yours. Yeah. We want to use one of these other ones. We've narrowed the field down. How are you going to make data available? Oh, we're not. Well, we might have to go to RFI because go back to your key decision. What's it about? It's about the kids. Having that data, having that overview, having that understanding, having that ability to support children in their growth across the whole gambit of things that we have, that's the important thing. Yep. If the software provider is not giving you that, put pressure on them to do it. If they're not going to pressure it, then you might start looking elsewhere. Interoperability absolutely is essential.
I think it's probably the key in this day and age when you're talking about a school ecosystem, is that integration with another one, because as you say, no one can be the best at anything, at everything rather. It's really about how well you play with that's why team sports exist, because you're not just good at one particular position.
You need all those different roles, and going back to when I first started doing my tinkering, I had to get into the back end of all the SQL database and understand how all of that data worked, because I was not going to have people having to type this stuff into a spreadsheet and then import that into their, all of the teachers. That is the biggest hurdle if you got to get that data across to do it. No teacher's going to do that. We don't have time to do the essential stuff, let alone that, And every impediment, every road hump that a teacher has, if there's a road hump, I don't have time as a teacher. Our teachers are time poor. Yep. They're under stress. We need to understand that if we're going to look after them, we've got to make that data flow, make it easy. Yep.
It's easy to stop at a little hump, isn't it? It's much easier to stop at a little hump than it is to, it's probably easier to just make the data flow in the first place.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
we as educators, we tend to be a little bit like water. We find the path of least resistance, and so when we come to that hump, we will make that stop because the data is not flowing.
But being fair to teachers, it's not their fault that they don't have the time.
Correct.
And they take the easiest flow or they stop at the bump. I think. When I first started, I did all of the research on products. I was looking for the reasons I was starting. And, globally, teachers were under stress back then. Yep. Well, I would have thought things would have got better by now, and they're not. They're worse.
They're not. The number one stressor of principals and business managers alike is workload.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any parting tips for school leaders?
Yeah, that's a really broad question, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, look, I just keep going back to, if we don't understand why we exist, then we're flailing about and we're heading off and we're chasing shiny things. Don't chase shiny things. If you need the shiny things, match it back to your purpose. What is our purpose? Why do we exist? We exist because our nation, the world, needs kids to grow better.
Yeah.
You know, and education is not an academic thing alone.
Yeah.
You know, we want to grow human beings
Correct.
who make our planet a better place.
Yeah.
That is the job of a school, not just about teaching the maths and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But here's another interesting one for you. You know, as you know, I'm caravanning around a bit. And I remember back, I was about to take my long service leave from teaching 2004-05. I was deputy principal at the time. We were sitting down in our senior staff sort of meeting revising last year's diary, because you remember we had the diary and you had all the policies and procedures in the diary and this, that and the other. And we must have spent a few hours arguing over the specific wording of the paragraph about not taking your children on holidays during school time.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And here I was about to go on long service leave with a 4 and a 6-year-old, 4-year-old just starting school, 6-year-old already in school, for 4 months in a caravan around Australia. You know, after that trip, I came back and I said, what an absolute waste of time.
Yep.
You know, what my kids learnt on that journey, you know, sitting in the opening of Parliament, watching Kim Beazley and John Howard, I think it was at the time, sort of, you know, exchange pleasantries and the mace comes in and this, that and the other. Then 2 minutes later, they're at each other's, you know, throats. You know, my oldest producing a video on rainforests, having visited 5 different rainforests and walked through them and read the plaques, versus all of her friends who were back at home doing desktop research on rainforests, you know. We spend all of this time on the finesse of whatever. And what's that finesse there? It's there to protect the teacher from having kids ask for stuff. Well, can't we protect the teacher from that by having systems that
flow,
provide that flow already, you know? So bring that decision making back to what's best for the kid. And I'm really sorry to say, if the kid's going in a caravan for 4 months and around Australia, that's what's best for the kid.
They're probably going to learn more. I dare say.
The stuff they're going to learn, they'll never forget.
Correct.
Number one. And number two, the time they have with their parents is, you can't replace that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, Grant, I've definitely heard today, you know, as schools, we should consider our core purpose, which is our young people, and just helping our young people in any way that we can. Grant, thank you very, very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in today and having you as part of the School of Business podcast.
Been a pleasure being here and being in Adelaide for a few extra days.
Thanks so much, Grant.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Business of School podcast. We've enjoyed the conversation today and would love to have you join us for future episodes. Please hit the subscribe button and follow the links below to find more information and resources to support you and your school team. Until next time, keep being innovative, keep being awesome, and remember, there is always opportunity to improve on the journey. Thanks for connecting.